Hello there and welcome back to the channel. This is Nerd World, and today returning to the Babylon 5 universe to sort of round off my series that I started on Earth Alliance ships, as I'm going to have to cover some of the other variants of the Starfury, and in this one we're looking at the Thunderbolt series Starfury, the evolution of course of its predecessor, which was a space superiority fighter. This one had the added versatility of actually being able to enter a planetary atmosphere. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe, comment down below and tell me of any ships I've missed. If you watch the playlist you should see all the other vessels, and I'm pretty sure there are some, but if you know one, let me know, I'll cover it. With that said, let's get started on this video. Similar to its predecessor, this craft was built by the Mitchell Hyundai Corporation. They were the main manufacturers of the space superiority fighters used by the Earth Force representing Earth Alliance. This particular version was 15.3 meters in length, 19.7 meters wide, with its extended wings out, which gave it the, as I said, added bonus of being able to fly in a planetary atmosphere, which is something its predecessors could not do. It can be operated by a single pilot, but typically does have two personnel on board, a pilot / navigator / gunner. It has increased weaponry and speed over its, again, predecessor. It has 4 linked unidirectional Walters 40mm pulse cannons, as well as hardpoints for a variety of different missile-based systems. It is considered to be one of the most advanced fighters used by any of the younger races, with the exception only of the Nile class used by the Minbari. This craft was initially deployed in 2260 and would see most of its action during the Earth Force Civil War, unfortunately. Some of the main features of this fighter, as I said, included it being a little faster and more maneuverable than its predecessor, but it did make sacrifices in that this vessel was designed for planetary excursions as well. As a result, it was a little bit of a jack of all trades, but that's more my opinion on the craft, in that theoretically it was faster, but not necessarily more maneuverable in space. It didn't really gain any advantages in there, but it did have the advantage of being able to enter a planetary atmosphere and generally being a bit more of a kill machine. Out of universe, some of its design inspiration came from the Warthog ground attack aircraft used by the United States Air Force, particularly the forward mounted gun assemblage of the craft. Back into universe again, the main feature of this vessel, I keep stressing, is its ability to enter an atmosphere. This cannot be underestimated as how much of an advantage it gave this fighter. Most other races couldn't do this. Again, the Nile class being an exception, but most other races' fighters actually struggled with atmospheres, and this craft simply didn't. It could glide through the atmosphere like an aircraft of old and engage targets on the ground as well as in space. Again, it did make certain sacrifices in terms of armor protection for this. However, that was realistically negligible considering the kind of weapons you'd be going up against anyway. You really relied on maneuvering, which was something that Earth Alliance starfighters were very good at. The X-Wing-like design, not related to another certain science fiction franchise that also had X-Wings, gave it an edge in maneuverability. The engine assemblage at the ends of those wings allowed it for extreme maneuverability, including being able to turn 180 degrees on its own axis even while in flight, as well as reverse speed at the same speed that it was going forwards. It was a very advanced craft. As I said, looking at it, it does seem to have certain disadvantages over its brethren for space superiority purposes, including what looks to me like a sort of, with its more aerodynamic design, there could be an element of a visibility issue, I think, in that the other one had a full cockpit that would allow you to see everywhere, including below. This one was much more narrow and forward. It was little things, but those are just my observations of the craft, when in reality, really, space fighters would actually have a lot of disadvantages in a modern military context, considering the time period. You think about the kind of weaponry you're using, and most fighters, especially manned ones, would be insane to put a pilot in something like that. You'd be better off with drones or robot fighters. It's one of the things that Star Wars, particularly the CIS, got right. You might as well as use robots because they're such easy targets. The Empire in that with its TIE fighters, which are an easy comparison in many ways to these crafts, and I think I've done that in a previous video actually, are a cheap and nasty fighter, which is actually quite advanced, but for the Empire lives are cheap, and the fighter reflects that. This craft was not like that. It was designed to be a space superiority, all-encompassing badass fighter, and it is actually pretty damn cool. My personal opinion, again, it may be showing I actually have a love for the classic Starfury in the earlier seasons. I don't love this one quite as much. When I remember first seeing it, I thought it looked a little pointy for my tastes for a space fighter. It didn't. There was just something about its aesthetic I didn't like. It looked too much like an aircraft from now. It's one of the reasons it's controversial. I don't like the X-Wings from Star Wars. I love the TIE fighters. And believe me, I understand the difference. The TIE fighter is a dumb fighter. But it's really pretty and kind of cool. And yeah, they're a death trap in many ways, but they're also a very advanced piece of machinery. They are extremely fast. With good acceleration, they can easily outdo an X-Wing on that one. And actually their weapons are pretty damn powerful on a TIE fighter. They were massively overpowered in some ways, but that's going out of this universe and into another one, although I may have to do a comparison, more of a detailed comparison one day. Anyway, this is only a quick video on the Thunderbolt Starfuries. Of course, as I said, they were mainly used during the Earth Alliance Civil War. Unfortunately, not widely used against the Earth Alliance real enemies like the Shadows or other such species like the Drak. Although, of course, they were used against the Drak, as these kinds of fighters were the ones that were equipped to the Victory class destroyers that would be the future in many ways. It was likely the Warlock class also carried them. Anyway, that's it. I just want to take this moment to thank you for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, please check out my social links in the description box below to Instagram and Twitter and others, and also is down there a link to my Patreon page where you can support this channel and the others as I try to grow this franchise and do this more regularly. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.